What's going on, aspiring school leader? I am Dr. Donovan Smalls II, educator, best-selling author, school leadership coach, and I help aspiring school leaders confidently land their first leadership role and lead with impact from day one. On this special edition of the Aspiring School Leader podcast, I had a tremendous opportunity to sit down with Principal Jeff Linden. He is the principal of Hastings High School in Hastings, Nebraska, and he's also the host of the Educational Leadership with Principal JL podcast. I know that this conversation is going to be invigorating for you as it was for me, because he continued to drop so many gems as it relates to how he got into leadership, his military background, his coaching background, his background in physical education, but also math. And so I know that it is going to bring so much value to you. So without further ado, here is my interview with Principal Jeff Linden. Principal Linden, I am super excited to have you on the show today. After doing a little bit of research about you, I noticed that you have a background in physical education, which is also my background. So I thought that was really interesting in terms of the way that we connected. How did what was that motivating factor in terms of you getting into education?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I didn't get into education right out of the gate. It's one of those things that it found me more than I found it.
Hmm.
Uh, so when it comes down to it, I started college and I was going to be a physical therapist, athletic trainer. I was going to go work for a professional sports team. That was my goal, right? It's my
Okay.
aspiration. I got into it. I wasn't really loving it. Let's just say life happens.
Hmm.
Um, you know, at that time, I met somebody. We got married, had a couple of kids, so I had to go
Hmm.
into the. I wasn't doing school at the time, so I went into the workforce. So I worked at a factory called Baldwin Filters in Kearney, Nebraska,
Okay.
for about 3.5 years, and then during that time, my older brother calls me up and says, "Hey, would you like to coach football?" I'm like, "Coach football?" I'm like, "I don't really, know what I'm doing. I haven't coached before." He's like, just take what you learned from high school and do that. You'll be fine." Started coaching in junior high football at Kearney Catholic High School, or Kearney Catholic Junior High, not high school.
Okay.
That was but that evolved into me getting into coaching. I
Hmm.
had some really great mentors like Rashawn Harvey was one of my mentor coaches. I worked under Bernie Madison and some other really good coaches in that Kearney Catholic system. And so I would work the junior high and help the high school. And Coach
Okay.
Clancy was another coach that kind of helped me. Coach, uh, Landon
Hmm.
is also another guy. So we all got together, and so I started figuring out I really enjoyed watching kids take what you know and
Mm.
apply it and becoming successful with it. So
Right.
that's where I go, teaching, coaching kind of go together. So I'm going to go become a teacher. Then I'm going to become a head football coach, and I'm set for the rest of my life, right? Oh, that's kind of how I honestly got into teaching was I was
Hmm.
coaching football. I saw the parallels between them. And so I went back to school and started finishing my undergraduate degree. I went into the PE side of education because I had a lot of credits, already collected
Hmm.
through like exercise science and
Yeah.
anatomy, kinesiology, all these different sciences that were involved. So it made a really easy transition for physical education.
Hmm.
But then they go, you know what? You're probably going to have a hard time finding a job. So
Mm.
I doubled endorsed and became not just a PE teacher, but a math teacher as well. So I was endorsed 712 PE math. And the math is really what opened the doors for me. I
Okay.
did teach PE. I did teach some math in the 11 years that I was teaching before becoming an administrator. But really,
Hmm.
that's kind of my story on how I got into education.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you mentioned that, education kind of chose you, which is very similar to me. I never thought that I was going to be an educator. However, I was really into sports. I thought I was going to coach. and maybe be an athletic director, and that was it. But look at us now, right?
Yeah, no. Honestly, I had the same thought. I thought if I become an administrator, I'll just be an athletic director and call it good.
Yep.
No, that's not what happened. There's some there's stories behind that as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, just when it comes down to it, I really love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, and I really love connecting with kids.
Hmm.
And for me, teaching and coaching were the same thing. I
Yeah.
was trying to help kids learn, a subject, and then as a coach, I was helping them understand the game and get the skill set so when they go to the Friday Night Lights for football, they were passing those tests the best they can. So that's kind of where I found my connection between both coaching and teaching. And I really do feel like, you can be a really good teacher and a really good coach. They have a lot of similarities involved with that.
Absolutely. And that's what we love to see, right? It's that magic that happens when we're teaching, the personalities that come out. And so that's why we love education. On this podcast, on the Aspiring School Leader podcast, we specifically focus on helping aspiring school leaders get to where they want to be, right? And so many aspiring leaders, they struggle with the leap from teaching to leadership. I often say that when we talk about leadership, it's an entirely different skill set compared to teaching. Yes, there are some transferable skills, but there's some additional skills in, emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, and all those things that we need to make sure that our aspiring leaders have in order to properly lead our kids. So, what mindset shifts were most important for you when moving into being a school leader?
I think for me, I had to know it was time. It was time for me to make that transition. I taught for 11 years, saw a lot, did a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I needed to teach for at least a decade to get those experiences so I could speak to those experiences as a leader. I knew eventually I would want to aspire to become a principal. I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't know when that time would be. And it kind of one of those things where it just came to a point to where I was in the classroom going, I really love what I do, but I just know there's more that I can do. And
Yeah.
so I knew I can have a bigger impact. So you're taking the mind shift or you're going from classroom, right? Your classroom's your domain. That's your baby. You're in there, you're helping the kids, you're engaged with the kids, and you're
Mm-hmm.
helping those kids strive in that classroom environment. You get to set the tone in that classroom. So you have to take the classroom mindset shift and then apply it to a building level.
Yes.
A lot more moving pieces, a lot more people that you're working with. But I think for me, when I understood as a principal, my job is to make teachers better.
Mm.
That's how you're going to make your students better. Yes, I want to impact the students. I want to have relationships with them, but my best way to impact my students' achievement is to
Mm-hmm.
impact the ability of my teachers and build teacher capacity so they,
Mm.
in their domain of the classroom, is connecting with those kids and helping those kids learn to the best of their ability. And so that's kind of where my mind shift focused from student driven to
Mm-hmm.
now I'm working with adults. Yes, I still work with students. I still engage with students, but I spend most of my time engaged with my adult learners and helping them learn and grow so they can impact the students in a positive light.
Right, right. And so we have to make sure that the adults are being taken care of, just like we have our primary focus is on the kids, right? And so, were you ever an assistant principal? What role did you have before principal, or did you go right into it?
So here's my story. Now, for me, when I knew it was time to step into a leadership role, I was applying for every AP job, every AD job out there under the sun,
Hmm.
getting some interviews, learning through the process, learning, kind of the the interview process and understanding how to answer the questions and how to bring what I have done. Because I actually was a part of a leadership academy at Ralston High School under Dr. Adler, which helped me prepare, but I
Hmm.
also did some things like I'd help supervise events, I'd help run events. I would do things to, build my resume. So when I
Right.
sat across the interview table, I would had experiences in some
Hmm.
sort of leadership. Now, I was also a non-commissioned officer in the military, so I have
Wow.
that leadership experience as well. that was something I brought into education, and I
Mm-hmm.
was able to leverage that as well. But when it came down to it, I'm going to these interviews, and it was the time I'm at an AP AD job in Baird, Nebraska,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get the job. And the superintendent at the time called me and said, "You need to be applying for principal jobs, not AD jobs, not
Amazing.
assistant principal jobs."
I
He's
love
like,
it.
"Your experiences and the things you're talking about, you're a building principal. You should not be doing,
Mm.
an AP or." So I was like going, really? Like I never thought of myself being a building. I figured be an AP, be an AD, and build into the principal
Right.
leadership building wise. But when that guy called me and said, "This is what," and then he offered me an interview for their principal job that I also didn't get, but there's
Okay.
politics that laid into that we won't get into.
Right. Yep.
Hired a hometown person, which is fine. But
Mm-hmm.
that led to my next interview, which led me to connecting with the superintendent for the job I eventually got. So
Okay.
through that experience, I became a 712 building principal the first time. But you got to understand, I'm in a small rural school in Nebraska. So it's kind of like being kind of like an assistant principal a little bit in
Okay.
a building principal because I had a lot of responsibilities that I was doing that
Mm-hmm.
is, at a bigger school, assistant principals would be in charge of. But I was in charge of an assistant principal role when it came to student discipline and
Mm-hmm.
connecting, helping those kids and things like that. Now, I did have a assistant principal AD that helped me, but they focused on the athletic side, the coaches, those
Okay.
type of. I focused on the students and the teachers and that aspect. So I had a lot of hats that I wore
Mm-hmm.
in my first principalship at Southern Valley, which I was there for about 4 years, and then I got the job where I'm currently at Hastings, where I'm now a building principal with APs and I don't have to do all the other things. I get to really focus on the big
Yeah.
picture stuff now to where before I had to do all these little nuances. We didn't have directors in my small school, so I was the curriculum director. I was the instructional coach. I
Okay.
I was all of
You were
these.
doing it all.
I was doing all those things in this small rural school, the cornfield of Nebraska. And when
Mm-hmm.
I became a building principal at a much larger district, I went from having 175 students, 150 to 175 students. We actually, our enrollment dropped when I was there to
Mm-hmm.
having 1,000 students in a 912 building with about, 120 staff total. So I
Wow.
went from having 25 staff to
Mm-hmm.
150, 175 students to 120 staff to 1,000 students. So, but
Yeah.
I have a lot more support and systematic approaches at that school, and I
Mhm.
love it. And it's just this is what I'm built for, and I just enjoy what I do.
Yeah, yeah. What I love about your story and what you said is we sometimes we think that we need to follow the traditional route of like, I need to be an AP first. I need to, but when you know it's time, or when somebody taps you on the shoulder to say it's time for you to get into that principal seat or whatever the role is, you embraced it, right? And I think sometimes we like this is like personal for me because this is my fourth year as an AP, but I'm also feeling like I think it's time for me to take that leap. However, some people might say you need more experience as an AP, but I've spoken with other people who are like, you should have applied 3 years ago. So I think it's just coming to that, like that brought a lot of confirmation for me. And I hope it does for anybody who's watching or listening, that if you feel like you need to take that next step, obviously get the experience, do what you need to do, get the right mentors in your life. However, when it's time to take that leap, you might want to at least put yourself in the position like you did to interview, understand how to answer those questions so that when your time comes, you actually are ready. So that was
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Donovan, because you're kind of making a good point there. Someone's going to validate you taking that next step. And I wasn't really focused on that part of the next step. I was
Mm,
just thinking this is what I have to do because this is what's normal.
yep.
But then someone says, no, you should do this instead. The thing is I listened to that and went, you know what? I actually called a buddy of mine
Mm-hmm.
named Dr. Josh Wilkins, and we spoke for a few hours about what happened. He's like, dude, like he's right. You should be playing. So I had two people verifying this to me and
Right.
people that are respected in the field. And when
Mm-hmm.
you have that, you should just okay, trust it and go for it. And you won't be wrong. You'll be glad you did because you'll put yourself in a position to get to where you'd like to get to down the road. So yeah, I would definitely say if you have people validating that, you take that step and go and don't look back.
Listen, that response was for me, so I'll take that one. So you said that you've led at both Southern Valley Public Schools and now you're at Hastings High School. How did those transitions prepare you to enter new environments with confidence and set a tone of leadership from the start?
I think for me, going into Southern Valley, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. You know, I was learning, right? I was a new principal. I
Yeah.
had a superintendent that would help me out. It did get to the point to where the superintendent's like, "Yeah, you don't really need me anymore. Get going."
Okay.
But I asked a lot of questions. My biggest thing was to be consistent.
Mm,
Being able to, you know, when I had a consequence for a student and when I did student discipline, what I start with, the precedents that I set, I continued. So if it
okay.
was something I never dealt with before, I knew that was probably the most important decision I'd have to make at that time because
Hmm.
that would inform my decisions for future events that would be similar to that situation. So I
Mm,
think the consistency you gotta learn that. You gotta start, doing that because what you don't want, well, this person gets this and that. Yeah, but there's also other contributing factors you can't really discuss with people
right.
because each situation's unique. But at the same time, you want to be consistent, so they don't think that you're biased or you're
Hmm.
favoring somebody in those situations. And that's true at a building level with your staff as well. You want to be consistent with your messaging, consistent with how you interact with people, but also how you treat people because they'll see through your BS if you're not careful.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they will,
Hmm.
they will, they will call you out, and
Right.
that's the worst feeling of the world to have is to get that call out. But at the same time, you have to be willing to learn and grow. You got to be willing to know that you don't have all the answers.
Hmm.
I wasn't afraid to ask questions, but I also learned by watching other people. And so a lot of the things that I learned through leadership is watching what not to do and then what to do a lot of the time. So for me, I learned a lot in the Southern Valley stage in that first 4 years that prepped me for Hastings High. Because when
Hmm.
I went into Hastings High, the foundation that I had was solid. So where I knew exactly what I wanted to do in this building, I created my 60, 30, 90-day plan, which I never had the first time. So I
Hmm.
created this plan, first 60 days, next 30 days, the next 90 days. I created this plan and I handed it to him when I was being interviewed. This is what I'm going to do in my first year because I want him to understand, like, I understand I'm not going to come in and make sweeping changes. I'm not going to do a bunch of crazy stuff, but I'm going to
Right.
come in and I'm going to learn. I'm going to understand you. I'm going to build relationships. My
Hmm.
biggest thing was I was hired to build the culture, and that's what my focus was is to build the culture of the school so we can become successful down the road. And so
Right.
I couldn't do that without connecting with my staff, without connecting the students, without making those connections first. And so that's where my 60, 30, 90-day plan came in. And so having that plan for me helped me really just put on paper my thoughts on how I want to do it. It was
Hmm.
basically my concrete pathway for that, which, like I said, didn't have before, but understanding how systems work and how to utilize those systems to make things streamlined and better. So when I went from a small rural school, we implement systems. So when
Hmm.
I left, they knew what to do when I wasn't there. Where I came into, we have systems in place, but now I'm looking at the systems and streamlining them, making them better, taking it to that next level. It's kind of what my focus has been. But it was also just building those connections and those relationships first so we can
Hmm.
all move the needle together. And I think that's the big thing. You're not going to do this job on your own. You're not going to do this job on your own. You got to
Hmm.
have people surround you, good teammates that are going to help you with that.
Yeah, and you said something about systems, right? And you said that you have to have the systems in place so then when you're not there, things can still run smoothly without you. And that makes a lot of sense because, I've heard that if you're a leader and you don't have the systems in place and the building can't run without you, then you're not actually leading, right? And so
Yeah.
you need to be putting those protocols, those systems in place so that other people can grow within their leadership too, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we get into leadership to build other people. And so, you mentioned your military background. How has that influenced your approach to leadership, resilience, and decision making?
I think for me, when we have some sort of like, to be honest with you, the last 3 years I've had a student passed away from suicide.
Hmm.
So I've gone through some really, really hard stuff. If you see my yellow tie, it's
Mm-hmm.
September, it's Suicide Awareness Month. So today we actually celebrated suicide awareness. Everybody was wearing yellow. We did a little walk. But for me, that's really important to kind of bring some light to because because of my military background, I can handle um, or these type of events easier because
Mm.
I have the ability because
Right.
of my military training to disassociate from what's going on. It sucks that I can do that, but at the time I have to. I have to be able to, hey, this is we're in crisis mode. I have to be able to do things. I got to be able to make decisions, get people where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, we had a swatting incident to where we didn't know if there was an active shooter in our building or not, but we
Mm.
responded like there was, and it scared the crap out of everybody. But because of my military training, I was able to stay calm. I was able
Mm-hmm.
to get people where they needed to go. We were able to get the situation resolved. I was able to connect with my SRO, and we were
Mm-hmm.
able to get things going. Like it was one of those, when it happens, you just get into go mode. And so
Right.
for me to have a military background and to be trained in that way helps
Mm-hmm.
me deal with these type of you know serious situations that could happen at your school, but then it helps me respond in a way that's appropriate. But people
Mm-hmm.
will see you lead in those tough times because you'll find out if you're a weak leader or a strong leader in those tough times, because if you don't lead well when it's a crisis, you're not going to lead well when there's not a crisis. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what helps me lead in those moments is that military background, my ability to disassociate from what's going on and making the decisions and making them pretty quickly. Because people would say that they were just amazed how I just responded, and
Mm-hmm.
they knew because I have a military background that that was just in my DNA. And so
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I have that, but at the same um, it does. I think one of the on our perceptional surveys, the number one thing people say about the building that I lead is they feel safe and they know
Mm.
what to do in those type of situations. If we
Mm-hmm.
have a situation go down, they know how to respond because
Yeah.
of the way I respond and the way I've trained them. Like even today, we did a fire drill, or not fire drill, we did a tornado drill, and
Okay.
I warned them. I said, "We're going to do this, but I need you guys to get out your maps. I need you to know what routine you're going to go. You need to know what rooms you're going in." I'm like, we got to do this quickly and effectively and efficiently. And so
Mm-hmm.
I put that information out before we did it. They didn't know when we're going to do it, but they
Right.
got to be thinking about, well, with this situation, how would I handle that? So I was
Mm-hmm.
answering a lot of those questions today, but they were understanding, they were thinking the way I wanted them to think today, because I need you to know if things aren't going to be perfect, how you're going to respond to that. And so
Right.
those are some really good conversations. So when we did our shelter drill, we were able to get our 1,000+ kids into their locations less than 3 minutes
Wow.
because we followed these approaches that we needed to follow. But I also was guiding them through that. I was helping them, like, this was not going well before, and there were some concerns about it. And I said, this is how we're going to respond. And
Mm-hmm.
they responded very well. And they followed the routines and the things that have been set in place. And they followed to a T to where
Yeah.
it just ran smooth. I'm like, see, guys, when we do things the way they need to be done, things will just run smooth and run the way they are. So we had our best shelter drill that we've ever had since I've been here, because I was being very intentional on how we wanted to do this. And now they understand that we got to do it this way and how much better it was because of that. So that's another thing. So yeah, I'm good at those type of things with my
Yeah.
military background. That's
That's
what I everything.
But that's excellent. That's excellent because it shows that, as a teacher transitioning into leadership, you have to have a level of poise to you that doesn't allow you to panic because people are looking at how you lead. And so you don't have the option anymore to defer to other people. Like you literally have to start figuring out a plan while people are looking at you for that plan. And so, one of the effective strategies that I'm hearing is that although you didn't tell your staff exactly when the drill is going to be, you did let them know these are some of the things that we are looking for when the drill does happen. So they start thinking about it in advance. And then that puts them in the right mindset, as you said, so that you start thinking on everybody's on the same page. And then when things don't go right or things are not perfect, we can now all figure it out. Like you're putting teachers, you're giving them ownership as well in their own decision making. And so that's what great leaders do. And that's that background again.
Trying. Well, I also learned in the military you can't do it on your own. You got to have your people that are around your support team. Like
Hmm.
I can't lead a group of people if they don't, if they won't listen to what I have to say, or they don't.
Right.
So, like if I give an order, I need you to do it. But if they don't respect me and they don't trust me, they ain't gonna do it.
Hmm. They're not.
That's the part of leadership in the military. You got to trust your leaders, and I know that from personal experience because we had a situation when I was deployed where we didn't trust a certain leader, and
Mm.
it was evident. And we weren't afraid to tell that person like no because
Yeah.
we didn't trust them because they didn't have that rapport with us. But the people that have built rapport and build up their junior enlisted at that time, like I built up my teachers and try to build
Hmm.
capacity of my students as well. Um, they'll listen to you because you take the time to get to know them on
Yeah.
those levels, and I think that's really important in leadership is to know your staff. You don't have to like know every little thing about them, but you got to be able to know what they like, what's
Right.
going on with them. We look at it, I really look at it as that team concept, and a lot of people
Hmm.
will say family, but I like the team concept more than family
Mm.
because I think
Yeah.
we're more than just family. I think we're also a team, and I think there's a lot to that, where we work together and collaborate and move
Hmm.
in the direction together, and not just go in other directions. We're actually trying to
Yeah.
do the same direction.
Yeah, yeah, I like that team concept as well. And again, that's your background. We're going back to the sports background too.
There you go. There you go. There goes my coaching background, right?
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Background really team oriented, and you
Hmm.
take care of what you got to take care of so the team can be successful. You do your
Yes.
job and you do your job, and you don't worry about them not doing their job. You do the
Hmm.
job you're supposed to do so we can row the boat or get together and get going in the same direction. Because, like, even today, we were focused on doing our part, and
Hmm.
everybody did it perfectly. And
Okay.
so what I want to say is, and you'll get this as a principal, you'll have people come to you and say, well, this person's not doing this person's not doing that, they're not following that policy, they're not
Mm.
doing this, they're looking across the hallway and worrying about things that A are out of their control.
Hmm.
B, you need to worry about what you got to do because you have your role on the team and you need to be able to do your role. Because if you're not doing your role, I'll take care of the person that's not doing the role. You don't
Right.
worry.
Right.
I
Right.
will handle that. But at the same time, that's where you're building that, like, you know, hey, you do your part, we all do our part together. It's gonna
Hmm.
equal out to what, the sum of whole parts to where we're gonna be successful because everybody's doing the things they need to be doing. And so
Yeah.
I could take this example with our shelter drill and apply it to other things like our cell phone policies or,
Hmm.
taking attendance, things that it seems like sometimes like, hey, don't forget we have this thing that we need to do.
Right.
But I'll do it, it's going to work smoothly. And I think
Right.
that's a part of that process of growing into leadership is knowing that everybody has their role, but you also have to empower people in those roles as
Hmm.
well. And I think that's really important takeaway. Like even today, I have a teacher that wants to be an administrator, and I
Okay.
taught, hey, there's a situation coming up that we both know about. I go, I want you to handle that. I'll support you.
Hmm.
Need me, you come find me, but I want you to take initiative on this and handle it like you would if you were the assistant principal or if you're a building principal. And then
Right.
you know how it goes. And so I empowered that teacher today to
Yeah.
take that step. It's okay to have these conversations with your colleagues.
Hmm.
You're going to have these conversations if you get into this role anyway. So you might as well learn now. And so I empowered that teacher to do that. And so I'm going to
Yeah.
be watching that. So those are some things that I'm trying to do right now is to how I empower teachers to take the next steps into leadership.
That's excellent. That's excellent. You know, one of the areas we focus on this podcast is interview preparation. So, for educators preparing for interviews, what qualities do you believe stand out the most for hiring committees?
I think so. A couple years ago, well, it's been about 3 years ago now, I hired an assistant principal. And for me, I was hiring a certain person. I was hiring actually a certain temperament for
Hmm.
me.
Okay.
Okay. I was looking at temperament. Like you can have all the experience in the world, but if you don't have a certain temperament, you're not going to be very valuable to my building. Because I've had assistant principals that would get really emotional and they would just react. They would just get mad and react.
Yeah.
And they always react in the appropriate manner.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens as a principal, I had to clean up those messes a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I want to clean up an assistant principal's mess. I want somebody that can have some people skills. I would say you got to have the ability to be able to get yelled at and take some heat,
Yep.
but not let it affect you. You can't take these things personal because when these people are coming in hot, they're going to say things that aren't nice. And you're going to have to be able to go, okay, it's not really me. They're just upset at the situation, but not me
Yeah.
personally.
Right.
What I see is when they do take things personally and they make rash decisions and they make those quick, explosive, emotional decisions and don't have the ability to kind of step back and try to process that information.
Mm-hmm.
That 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 to me is something that all I'm going to be doing is cleaning up your mess. So I don't want to deal with someone so I do a deep dive on these people, on their temperament and how they are, how they interact with people. Do they build relationships,
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back into these candidates' history to figure out the interview was only a part of it.
Right. Right.
The interview was just a piece of it, but I was doing background checks. I was talking to people that weren't even on their reference checks.
Okay.
I wanted to get I wanted to get somebody that knew them within the community. And that's the nice thing about me being connected in Nebraska the way I am. I can call somebody I might know in this community and get a honest opinion about how this person leads.
Yeah.
An honest opinion. So I would take that information and put it together. And I was able to hire someone that was everything we need them to be, to where they had the right temper. Now they still get upset about things, but that's okay. We're all
Of
humans.
course. Yeah.
But at the time, for most part, they're able to help support the teachers and help the students. But when those tough times and moments come, when people are yelling at you, like I'll be honest, I've had several people come and call my assistant principal racist. They've called
Mm.
me racist. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, come on
Yeah.
now. Like, let's not just throw terms around because
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, you know, that is, just something that because they're frustrated, that's what they're grasping at, and they're just throwing it at you and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get a reaction out of you. But at the same time, we can't take that personal, and we don't. We're like going, all right, we understand that you're upset.
Right. Right.
This is
Right.
the situation. We lay it out, no matter what they say. But at the same time, we've had to tell people like, we're not going to have that kind of language.
Yep.
If you can't have an adult conversation, we're going to end this meeting. We're going to do it again later when you're calmed down and you can be an adult.
Yeah.
You know,
I get
those
it. I
those
get
things that leave us
it.
so out, man. So,
I've been there.
so having someone have the right temperament, but at the same time, be prepared. So some things you can do as a person getting ready for an interview is you want to be prepared. Pacific, I'm not gonna say it right. Specifically, there you go. To
Mhm.
that school, right? You want to research that school, get to know about them. You maybe
Mhm.
want to reach out to someone that may be working in the school and get to them. Hey, what is the school like? What is it like to
Mhm.
work with these people? What are what is the inside like, at this school if you're able to do that. So do some of your own
Mm.
recon, look at the social medias, reach out to people within the community. I did that a lot when I was looking at different school districts. I was researching, you know, what are their processes? Do they have different systems in place like MTSS programs,
Right.
you know, PBIS and I mean, I could go on and on and on about different programs all day long, but you want to
Mhm.
know what they are about. And if you can get
Yeah.
somebody on the inside to help you with that, that will help you give you some leverage, some information so you could speak to your experience and how you
Mhm.
apply it to what they're trying to do and build there at the school. What I was probably most impressed with people was when they took the time to get to learn about our school and ask questions specific to that school and what we're doing and what we're about, because that tells me you took the time to
Yep.
learn about us, and now we're taking the time to learn about you, and that means a lot more
Mhm.
when you just have someone come in there. They could have all the credentials in the world and be a fabulous person and a fabulous administrator from previous past, but
Mhm.
if they don't have what you need, you don't hire them. You hire the people that you need that will fit the vision that you have as a building principal. I think that's important as well, because
Yeah.
you don't want to bring in somebody that is the wrong fit.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean they can't do the job, but you got to bring in the right fit when you're looking to hire that AP that's you're trying to build your culture with.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And some of the best sports teams have people who fit the puzzle, right? It's not always the most talented team. It's the individuals who can collectively come together, use their skill sets, and they just fit, right? And that's great advice that you gave. So you have a podcast, the Educational Leadership with Principal JL podcast. What made you develop the podcast? Like, what's the premise behind it?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was in year 4 at Southern Valley. I knew my time there was coming to a close, but I was also looking for ways to grow as a leader. And so when you're in a small rural school district, you're out in the middle of nowhere in the cornfield, like I said before, you don't have a lot of opportunities to connect with other people in the position you have. Yes, you have other administrators in your area that you connect with. There's sometimes your regional meetings that we go to. I didn't do a very good job at the beginning of my career to take advantage of those things because I
Mm,
felt like I had to be in my building. My building's not going to run without me, and
yeah.
all those things that I was worried about. Once I figured out if I had systems in place and people understood how to run them,
Hmm.
I could go to a regional meeting and know that my building is going to still be there and not explode before I get back. That was a lesson that I learned in that first placement or my first opportunity as a principal is get those systems in place so you can network. And so my podcast was like based off of going to these regional meetings, go into these different networking events for principals.
Hmm.
I started listening to other principals and their stories, how they become principals and the stories they were telling. I'm like going, you know what, that'd be very valuable if other because I learn from other people and I
Yeah.
figured other people may learn from other people too. So what if I started a podcast
Hmm.
to where I would tell other educational leader stories. Now, if you listen to my first few episodes, I was talking more about leadership styles and how you lead and different things because I was really focused on leadership alone, on how
Hmm.
people led, but also I now kind of evolved that into why you get in education, what experiences do you have that helped you get to where you're at today? And so I
Mm.
really just go through that principal or lead educational leaders' experiences and have
Hmm.
them tell their story to where
Yeah.
other people may listen to that and go, you know what? I feel that person. I know I have the same stuff going on. Hey,
Hmm.
maybe I can connect with that person because we've gone through similar things. So my goal of my podcast is to connect other educational leaders with other educational leaders, tell their stories so we all know we're not alone. We all, no matter where you're at, Donovan,
Hmm.
like if you're in California, if you're on the East Coast and, Midwest, like Nebraska, like I am, I'm learning from other people
Yeah.
through my experiences as a podcaster. And some things that I've implemented, thanks to Principal Mo, I have Badger School AI. I would have never known about Badger School AI if I never
Yeah.
interviewed, right? So there's
Right.
some things that we have in our school now because I've learned through this
Hmm.
process of if we provide like Josh Tavar says free PD, right? You know Josh
Yep.
Tavar.
Yep. Yep. Hmm.
So free PD, if we give these people these resources to where if they are out in the middle of the cornfield in South Central Nebraska, like I was, they have somewhere they can go to
Hmm.
learn and grow and get better and maybe
Right.
connect with somebody that they're like, you know what, that might be someone I want to connect with so I can
Hmm.
learn more about that piece so I maybe can make myself better, but make my building better and my teachers better. So that's kind of the premise behind this is to really
Yeah.
it really just tell our story and all our uniqueness and everybody's struggles and celebrations and things we've
Hmm.
learned because it's going to help somebody and we want to help those new leaders coming in because right now with the shortage we have leaders that are coming into positions that don't have a lot of you know background, but they need some sort of support. They need some sort of leverage or resource to go. And so
Hmm.
hopefully people will find the podcast something that will help them become better in this role and connect them with other people. So that's the premise and that's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. And like you said, our stories are important and we're all learning from one another. Like I mentioned earlier, like you've helped me just with what you said in terms of taking that leap. And so, I love what you're doing with your podcast. So where
I love
can,
what
oh,
you're
go ahead.
doing too, Donovan. You're doing a great job as well, buddy.
I appreciate it.
Keep it growing, bud.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, as we begin to wrap up, where can people connect with you, learn more about you, and what you do aside from being a principal?
All right. So I'm an avid Husker football fan. So
Okay.
I mean, places you can find me on TikTok under Principal
Mhm.
JL. I'm on TikTok, I'm on IG, I'm on Threads, I'm on Facebook. Now I
Mhm.
have my personal Facebook, but I try to keep that separate from my principal. But you'll
Right.
see a lot of my posts like crossover. So if I
Hmm.
post it on Principal JL, I post it on my private. So if you're friends
Yeah.
with me, personally, you're gonna see some of the same posts that I put on my platform when it comes to that. But those are in Twitter. I'll be on or X, not Twitter. This shows my age, right? So
I
X,
call
I'm
it
on,
Twitter too.
but on X, I'm the Principal JL. But at the same time, my podcast is on all major platforms, and you can
Okay.
also connect through that as well. Because I have a dot card that maybe I'll give you the link to
Yeah.
where I have all my information and you'll be able to connect that way as well. Now, I keep what I do podcast wise and my principal JL brand separate
Hmm.
from my job, but they
Yeah.
do connect.
Hmm.
So I don't put my work stuff on there. So if it's a work related thing, reach out to my school.
Right. 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 I get it.
So I try to keep those things separate. So, but I love Husker football. It's football season. Being a football coach and a wrestling coach and a track coach throughout my career, I just love activities and sports itself.
Hmm.
But I do have, I make time for my family. The thing is I got some older kids and I have my last one. She's a fifth grader right now. So she's kind of
Okay.
like going the only child route because all the older ones are off. They've got their own lives. They're in their mid 20s
Yeah.
um, in their careers right now. So we like to go camping. We like to go fishing,
Hmm.
boating. My goal is it's going to be 80 plus degrees this weekend. I got to get
Okay.
out one more time.
You have to,
I gotta
especially
before
in
I got
Nebraska.
before I got to shut her down for the season. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm doing, and yeah, I just that's what I do. I love watching like college football. I do some. I'm in a fantasy league, so I do some NFL stuff too. But
Okay.
I'm a Raiders fan for the NFL, college. But I just love college athletics in general.
That's excellent. Me too. Listen, I'm a college basketball fan, so yeah,
Okay,
it's coming
who's your
around.
team to root for?
So I typically root for Villanova. I do like Seton Hall. I work like right down the street from Seton Hall University, and so those are the teams I typically root for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Big East, right? Creighton,
Big East,
Nebraska.
Big East. Yep, yep.
Creighton's been the big time program here in Nebraska for a while. I know the Huskers have been trying to get to that level,
Hmm.
but Creighton, man, they've been balling out for a long time here. Now I can watch college basketball too. I
Hmm.
really enjoy March Madness. I'm a
Oh
wrestler,
yeah.
so
Okay.
I, I like March Madness too. Uh,
I never heard that before, but that's good.
Yeah. So if you're a wrestler, you know what March Madness is. It's when the NCAA tournament comes around, and you can actually do your own little like bracket for wrestling too. Like you could fill it out.
Oh,
You could project out the national champions and stuff like that, kind of
okay.
like you. But you have to do it for every weight class. It's fun to do just to see how well you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the March Madness, I really enjoy that time as well. That's probably where I watch the most college basketball. And I'm not really a basketball guy. I just I enjoy watching the upsets.
Yes.
Who's
Yes.
gonna get
I
up?
love it.
That's what I like it for. Who's gonna get up? That's where like the college football with the playoffs going on and things they do now. I
Yeah.
really like to watch the upsets and really like I get really giddy when Alabama goes down. I'm sorry. I like when I like when Texas loses.
Of
I like
course you do.
when a lot of these old school rivalries that Nebraska had lose, like
Yeah.
Kansas State, Iowa, you know, like that. We like it when they lose because we're kind of selfish that way. At the same time, we respect them as well. We know
Of
they're good.
course.
But yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, I enjoy that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's all in fun. It's all in fun. Well, Principal Linden, I appreciate you for joining the podcast today. Definitely had a great conversation, and I'm sure that a lot of our aspiring leaders got a lot of nuggets from what you said, and I'm gonna take your advice and I'm gonna go for it.
Hey man, I wish you the best, Donovan. I know you'll do a great job. I know you've been preparing for that opportunity, and so yeah, go for it, man. You won't be disappointed. And I really want to thank you for being on your podcast, and I'm excited to bring you on mine as well. So thank you for having me and the opportunity to connect with your audience today.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Talk to you soon.
All right.